My name's Damien Grant. I'm the Director of Tempest Litigation Funding Limited, and I'm doing this short video today to talk about Ebert Construction Limited. Hopefully most of those who are watching were creditors in Ebert Construction Limited, and most of you would have been involved in our efforts in 2008 to change the liquidators of Ebert Construction Limited in an attempt to try and get a dividend from that insolvent company. So just take a step back. So Ebert Construction Limited, as you will remember, went into receivership in early 2008. Tempest, we are a debt buying company, and we had we were owed some money from Ebert. We made the application to put Ebert into liquidation, and the shareholders appointed their own liquidators. Perfectly respectable firm, insolvency firm, but not our first preference. So Tempest, we went to you, the creditors, and we asked for your support to change the liquidators, and we wanted to see Ian Shepherd and Jessica Callow of BDO in Wellington. So a couple of years down the track, now is a good time to just have a recap and have a review of how well our liquidators who we put in office, how well have they actually performed? Should we be happy with what they have done? So let's just have a look at where we got to. Now, starting at the top, Ebert Construction. Ebert Construction went into receivership because they were owed around $6 million from our friends at the BNZ. The receivers have mostly completed their work. There was a retention fund which was separate. The receivers have clawed in about $6 million, $2 million from a GST refund, and around $4 million from collecting accounts receivable. That was where Ebert had done work for somebody and they were getting, the receivers collected the money. Now, and most of that $6 million has now been paid, including $1.8 million to the BNZ, around $600 to staff, $750 for other unsecured creditors, and so forth. The key takeout is that there's not going to be any money coming out of the receivership of Ebert for us, the unsecured creditors. So are we going to get any money from the liquidation? Well, one of the reasons why at Tempest we were really interested in this file is that we looked at this company here, Wakefield Plant Hire, and Wakefield Plant Hire, which was a related entity and shared two of the same directors and some similar shareholding. Wakefield Plant Hire appeared to hold all of the physical assets. And so when I talked about the $6 million that came out of Ebert, there was almost nothing for physical assets. The cranes that you see around town with Ebert Construction on them, the trucks, all the rest of it. Most of these assets appear to be, and I don't know this for a fact, but appear to be sitting in Wakefield Plant Hire. And so one of the things that I was interested in is could we somehow, as the creditors here, lay claim to the assets in Wakefield Plant Hire? And look, there are legal mechanisms by which that can happen, and I won't delve into the detail. But it appears on the surface, in my conversations with the liquidators, that no, we just simply don't have the legal mechanism to do that, and even if we did, because there's a large shortfall to the BNZ has a prior claim over those assets anyway. So no, there's no possible opportunity there. But one thing that the liquidators did notice, they noticed money going between Wakefield Plant Hire and Ebert Construction, and Ebert Construction and Wakefield Plant Hire. And there was one payment in particular, $1.3 million, that went out 11 days prior to the receivership of Ebert. 1.3 million went to Wakefield Plant Hire. Now, money had gone the other way as well. Money was going back and forth between them. So, under the insolvency law, the liquidators are entitled to go to the court and ask for that money to be clawed back. And one of the reasons why I wanted Ian Shepherd and Jessica Callow in there as liquidators is I knew that these particular liquidators were not afraid of litigation and were prepared to go to court. And that is exactly what our liquidators did. So Ian Shepherd and Jessica Callow went to court, and they went to the High Court and they said, hey, we've got at a minimum this $1.3 million and possibly more. We want to get that money back. Now look, that's small beer in the scale of this liquidation, but they went to court. Now unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. And they were unsuccessful for two reasons. The first reason was that Wakefield Plant Hire, which is not in receivership or liquidation, but Wakefield Plant Hire
claimed that the money that was going back and forth, they were merely a conduit for the BNZ. So the money wasn't really going to Wakefield Plant Hire, it was actually going to the BNZ. And look, based on the judgment, I think that's probably correct. I think the judge was probably correct in his determination in respect of that. And so because it wasn't really money that went from Ebert to Wakefield Plant Hire, this money really went to the BNZ. There's no voidable transaction there if the liquidators were unsuccessful. But as a fallback position, there was the liquidators, the directors of Wakefield Plant Hire, through the lawyers, maintained a second line of defence, which was, even if they were voidable, they potentially had a defence under the Companies Act, that if they acted in good faith, had no knowledge of insolvency and provided value, then they wouldn't need to repay the money. And it came down to the issue of, did Mr. Hale and Mr. Phillips, who were the directors of Wakefield Plant Hire, who were also the directors of Ebert, did they have knowledge of the insolvency of Ebert 11 days before Ebert went into receivership with as much as $100 million worth of creditors outstanding? And here I'm not too sure that I agree with the judge, but he was privy to the facts and I weren't. But the judge found that Mr. Hale and Mr. Phillips, 11 days before their company failed, had no reasonable grounds to suspect that Ebert was insolvent. Now there are some technical reasons for that, and certainly Mr. Hale and his friends put in $3.5 million relatively shortly before the company fell into receivership, and so based on that, given that they've done that money, there was probably valid reasons to believe that they didn't believe it was insolvent, because why else would they put the money in? So the short answer is, we're almost certainly not going to receive funds here. Going after the directors for reckless trading, given that there is already a court judgment out there that says that they didn't suspect insolvency 11 days prior to receivership, the liquidators are going to have a really hard time convincing a judge to ping the directors for reckless trading. So I've got my own views on how the directors ran Ebert Construction, but looking at it from the liquidators' perspective, I don't think that they really have a lot of options here legally. So I just want to come back to the decision to replace the liquidators. And look, in this particular situation, we're almost certainly not going to get a distribution from this liquidation, but that doesn't mean that changing the liquidators was the wrong thing to do. One thing we know with absolute certainty is that Ian Shepherd and Jessica Keller went to court. They looked at the facts and they took a case. They had to pay for the litigation out of their own pocket, and they will be needing to pay Wakefield Plant Hire quite a substantial cost award as well. This was a big trial. So from that perspective, I am very confident that we made the right decision to change the liquidators. Just because we didn't get a distribution doesn't mean that we didn't make the right decision. I think had we stayed with the current liquidators, I don't have the same confidence that they would have attempted this. I'm also very confident that if there was a reckless trading claim, that these liquidators would take that claim. I just don't think, hand on heart, that the liquidators would necessarily be prudent in pursuing that. I would love to see them do it. I'm not too sure that they will. Anyway, that's all from me. I thought I owed you an explanation as to where we got to. It's unfortunate we haven't got a result that we wanted on this occasion, but I think it's also really important what we did in the Ebert liquidation is that the creditors took a stand and we let it be known that we have an expectation of liquidators to take action on our behalf. And in this particular situation, the liquidators most certainly did. Didn't result in a dividend, doesn't mean that they didn't do what we wanted them to do. So that's all. We'll provide some more information. There's a letter that's gone out to the creditors. We'll provide that in the link below. Don't forget, Tempest, we are a debt buying company. We buy debts, including debts for companies that have already gone into receivership and liquidation. So if you've got some bad debts on your books, think of us, because that's exactly what we do. And the more work we do, the more we can help you guys out.